David Wells, we report the news here fairly and honestly. We also analyze the news for fact and bias. We make commentary that's not the news, and we debate. The commentary is just my opinion. You've got one too. Let's share them, shall we? That's the debate part. Once again, welcome to the Wells Report. Good to have you here. Lots of news, a couple of programming things happening. First of all, you'll notice that the show is a little bit earlier than normal. The reason it is because I've got a couple of different things to do in my regular life, and I've got to either do those things and take the day off or do the show. There's too much news. What we're covering is just too important to just take a day off. So that's what I'm doing up here right now at this particular moment, and I appreciate you for joining us a bit earlier than normal. Let's see what else is happening. By the way, tomorrow the same situation will occur. I'll be on around 10 o'clock. We'll have a promo for you so you know. Let's get to the news. 7 people are dead, a suspect in custody. This happened yesterday, or actually earlier today, after 2 shootings near the Northern California community of Half Moon Bay, just days after a rampage in Southern California killed 11. The latest attacks took place at a plant nursery 30 miles north of San Francisco. The San Mateo County Sheriff's Office said 4 victims were found dead at the first shooting scene. A 5th person was transported to the Stanford Medical Center with life-threatening injuries. 3 victims were found at a second scene. In other words, 2 nurseries were attacked. Excuse me. The FBI said on Twitter it was assisting local law enforcement with the investigation. The shooter apparently acted alone. There was no further threat to the community, according to Sheriff Christina Corpus. She said that late yesterday. It's a devastating tragedy for this community and the families touched by this unspeakable act of violence. The sheriff's office received reports of shooting just before 2:30 p.m. By the way, we want to thank USA Today for this. That happened yesterday. Half Moon Bay Vice Mayor Joaquin Jimenez said the victims included Chinese and Latino farm workers. Some workers at the factory or at the facility lived on the premises. Children may have witnessed the shooting, said Sheriff Corpus. She said it wasn't immediately clear how the 2 locations were connected. And she is still working on an investigation on that. A suspect is Chun Li Zhao. He is 67 years old. He's a resident of Half Moon Bay. He was taken into custody without incident from his car in the parking lot of the Half Moon Bay police substation more than 2 hours after deputies arrived at the first shooting scene. Sheriff Corpus said a semi-automatic handgun was located in his vehicles, according to the sheriff. Officials believe Zhao is a worker at one of the facilities, and the victims were workers as well. Some workers at one facility lived on the premises, and children may have witnessed the shooting, according to Corpus. The connection between the 2 facilities is not clear. Corpus said the officials hadn't determined a motive, though County Board of Supervisors President Dave Pine described the suspect as a disgruntled worker. President Joe Biden issued a statement saying he and his wife Jill were praying for the victims. For the second time in recent days, California communities are mourning the loss of loved ones in a senseless act of gun violence. Biden has met with his Homeland Security team, directed his administration to ensure local authorities and the broader Half Moon Bay community continue to have full support in the wake of this heinous attack. Biden also lobbied for his latest gun control bill, noting that Senator Barbara Feinstein of California, and I believe that's Dianne Feinstein of California, was among the lawmakers who introduced a bill that would include a federal assault weapons ban and legislation that would raise minimum purchase age for assault weapons to 21. There's a small caveat to that. Assault weapons were not used in this shooting. It was indeed a 9mm handgun, but never let facts get in the way of good politics, I suppose. Where is Half Moon Bay? Half Moon Bay is a coastal community of about 12,000 people, 30 miles south of San Francisco. The city becomes the site of the second mass shooting in California in 2 days, sitting almost 400 miles northwest of Monterey Park. 11 people were killed in a shooting rampage at a dance studio there on Saturday night. The suspected shooter was found dead in a van of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. And so this is what we have as we wake up this morning, another shooting in California. California is obviously a state that works extremely hard to disarm their public. And I have to lay this out for you. I just don't understand why it is that the secret or the answer to gun violence is to disarm people to provide more victims of gun violence. Can you help me with that? I'm very much interested in hearing what you have to say. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea why disarming the public is more advantageous when it comes to controlling gun violence than arming the public with either a weapon or a first aid kit? Can somebody explain this to me? Telephone number is 817-379-2172. It's right there on the crawl right in front of you. 817-379-2172. Do you have any idea? Why is a more defenseless populace somehow more attractive to the people that are calling the shots? Any idea? Because I don't understand it. I don't understand it, and I don't really figure, I can't figure out why more people standing there in front of a gunman is better than, say, for example, somebody saying, oh my goodness, it's a gunman, drawing leather, in other words, clearing leather, and shooting the gunman. You see, all these people, and this is before we even know the identities of the people involved. I mean, already the political machination begins immediately, and forgive me, but that's just unseemly. Let's wait until we know more before we start talking about politics. And oh, by the way, throwing out an assault weapons ban when somebody uses a 9mm handgun perfectly illustrates the out-of-touchness of Americans' political lords who would indeed render us all defenseless. So we have these crazy people. They have access to weapons. Is that something that should be taken care of? Yes, but how? If you have a solution, by the way, I'll be more than happy to hear it. 817-379-2172. I have no problem whatsoever listening to what you have to say. But what we have here is we have a circumstance whereby people can get weapons, and these people are willing to kill their fellow citizens. That's the problem. The tool they use is immaterial. It's absolutely immaterial. Before we start talking about getting rid of the tools, which can also be used in self-defense, let's start talking about the issues in the first place. Apparently, according to county officials in the place in Half Moon Bay, in the county where Half Moon Bay is, that's San Mateo County. According to those officials, this guy was a disgruntled employee. Okay. Is he nuts? Probably not. Is he unstable? We don't know, but let's assume that that's not the case. This is a calculated act of murder. If indeed he is responsible for it, we've got to find out whether he's responsible for it, but it is a calculated act of murder. Now, what are those people he was planning on murdering to do except stand there and accept their fate? And why is it that the people in California that run the state believe that more people that are in that likewise defenseless position are somehow more, it's somehow better than somebody being able to shoot back? This is a mystery to me. What this seems to me is, that's not what I tried to do there. That's fantastic. Oh, yeah. I'm going to stop it. So I stopped it. See what I did there? I just stopped it. Let's see, what is that? Okay. Right. That was weird. Anyway, so what we have here is we have a circumstance whereby people being defenseless is somehow more attractive to politicians than people being able to shoot back. I don't understand it. Do you understand it? If you understand it, can you share your understanding? 817-379-2172. So the other solution is what? The other solution is to go from one end of the country and collect all weapons. You know, there are places where you can go and get a weapon, whether it's legal or not, right? I mean, it's true. Americans, for example, can't take weapons into Mexico, but if you get into Mexico, Pretty easy to get one. If you get caught with it, you're in trouble. But still, at the end of the day, you can't get all the weapons. And then when you consider the origins of the Second Amendment, the origins of the Second Amendment arrived when the people of the United States were being ruled in a totalitarian fashion by soldiers that would essentially create their own search warrants on the spot without any kind of interaction with a judge or any kind of controlling authority and just go search somebody's house if they felt like it. They also executed a lot of the citizens. Simply tossed them in jail or executed them on the spot. The Boston Massacre rings a bell. And so what we ended up doing was we ended up saying, well, the people of the United States will be able to defend themselves, not necessarily from crazy people with guns that hate nurseries, but from government authority. And that is why the Second Amendment exists. Doesn't exist for hunting. Doesn't exist for the removal of varmints. It exists solely to keep the government in place. And so you go from one end of the country to the other. You violate the Constitution of the United States, which is plain on this point. You violate the Constitution of the United States. And what you do is you say, all right, this is what we're going to do. We are going to we're going to jump all over this and make this happen. All right. You can't get them all. But then what ends up happening when people finally say, you know what, I've had enough of this. I truly have. I've had enough of this. What ends up happening then is that they put a fence around the Capitol building and they call out the troops who have real weapons of war and they point them at us. Is that what you want? Is that what you think our nation should look like? Violate the Constitution, confiscate all weapons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's what we want. I just don't believe it. And I don't think that's what you want. So what is it? Is that what we want? I don't think so. This is the Wells Report. Stick around. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, we'll be right back with more of the news of the day as we do a little earlier broadcast here on the Wells Report. Stay right there. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. Poker Monkey asks, early today? Yeah, I got a couple of things in my life that I have to get taken care of, and I decided not to take the day off. I decided to just be on the air early. So we'll be on until 1 p.m. Central Time today live, and then, of course, we'll download it so everybody can go whenever they want to, wherever they want to, and hear the Wells Report and see it as well as we try to conquer video in our time. Did you see the promo? You see the Wells Report promo? I did it. It's up on Facebook. I still got to work on getting them on all the other things. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the chat room here while we have a moment. Poker Monkey, as you know, says earlier today, also typical leftist thinking. Blame the weapon, not the person. Yeah, it's just a tool. The number one murder weapon in the world in human history is a blunt force object. It's a hammer. And yet we have hammers everywhere. I brought this up yesterday. If we didn't have hammers, what would our houses look like? Just asking. Poker Monkey also says, interesting that the recent shooting by an Asian guy went virtually unreported. Why? Well, it doesn't fit the leftist media template. It wasn't a white guy. Poke goes on to say, black or Asian mass shooters don't matter. It's only white ones or white Hispanic, as they tried to call George Zimmerman, making him sound white. 40 years ago, Kennesaw, Georgia proved John Lott's theory of more guns, less crime. They passed a mandatory gun ownership law in 1982, and crime went way down. Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Everybody says that an armed society is a polite society. Is there any argument to that I can find from anybody right now? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Sure would like to hear from somebody on this. I think this would be a good thing to talk about. Because I still can't get past the logic trap that we have. The logic trap of, okay, so all these crazy gun owners or these crazy shooters are shooting down disarmed people, defenseless people. They say it's senseless, shooting down defenseless people. Well, how about if we were able to defend ourselves? In California, somehow you have to prove to the sheriff that you have a good reason to want to protect yourself. How about this? I might want to go buy a plant at a nursery in Half Moon Bay. How about that? Does that make any sense? Is that a reason to have to defend yourself? No, it shouldn't be. But you know what? It's exactly what is. Is it right? Hell no, it's not right. It's not right. But the thing about it is, it's also reality. In order to believe that more defenseless people leads to less gun violence, in order to believe that, truly believe it, you have to be unrealistic or disconnected from reality. It's sort of like saying, no, we're not going to build more roads because then there will be more cars as we sit in 45-minute traffic jams from one end of this country to the other. I don't understand what these people are talking about. I don't think you do either. I don't know. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report in manual this time and early. I hope you're enjoying the show. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. I know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourself, why is John David Wells on so early today? Well, got a few things I have to do a little bit later on in the normal time where we do the Wells Report, which is 2 to 5 live, Central Time. And what I had to do was I had to change my schedule a bit and find myself in a position where I could do this show instead of taking the day off because, frankly, I'm in a situation here where I believe that taking days off is bad, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep this thing rolling as much as I possibly can. So we've been talking a little bit about the classified documents that President Biden has in his possession or had in his possession. You wonder if there are going to be any more. Something tells me, yeah, there are going to be some more. as soon as we go through all the houses, there are going to be some more classified documents. This, of course, is contrasted with the fact that President Trump has had classified documents, and there's someone else, it's now been discovered, has classified documents. I'll tell you about that in just a couple of moments. Meanwhile, one of the problems that we have here in this nation at this particular moment is that politics is ruling the day regarding classified documents instead of reality and truth. Politics is creating mess after mess after mess. And if you don't believe me, all you really have to do is go to C-SPAN and or you can go to White House Live, the White House. And what you can do is you can put yourself in a position where you go, okay, so let me watch the White House press briefing and listen to Karine Jean-Pierre dance through trying to obfuscate. In other words, send people to other places for answers. She's the White House press secretary. She needs to have those answers. The problem with it is that she's being blindsided because, once again, politics rules the day, right up to and including undercutting your press secretary, your chief spokesperson. Your chief spokesperson is the person who's supposed to be able to tell the people of the United States what the truth is and what is actually going on. And she doesn't have any answers. Other people have answers. Yesterday, we reported here on the Wells Report that the problem is that there was going to be a White House counsel, what I considered to be a press conference at the time, turns out to be a conference call on background. In other words, background information. It wasn't public. It was only for the media. Did you hear much from that? We heard one report. I played it for you from Fox News. And the thing about that was, okay, really want to hear from the White House counsel. Really needs to stand there in the press office and answer direct questions. Now, obviously, those questions would be, we can't talk about it because there's an ongoing investigation. So, in other words, more obfuscation or outright stonewalling, depending on your point of view. And there are arguments on both sides here. So, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is being undercut by her own boss. I don't expect her to stay very long in that position, not because she's terrible, although what she's doing is terrible, because she cannot continue being undercut by her boss. There either have to be some very serious conversations inside the administration that involve Karine Jean-Pierre, or what needs to happen is that people just need to start coming clean. But either way, you cannot undercut your press secretary for the sake of politics. Fox News reports, despite growing pressure from reporters, Jean-Pierre has given few answers from the podium on questions surrounding President Biden's glowing classified documents scandal. As a former White House press secretary, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders slammed back at the lack of answers from the White House on Fox News, also saying that Karine Jean-Pierre has a terrible story to tell. She says the following. Let me see if I can bring this up for you so that you can hear it. We'll just borrow it from Fox News and see what we can't do about getting this for you here. Let me put this on, and we'll give this a shot. All right. So cross your fingers. off we go. All right, here we go.
Now, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is hitting the ground running with at least 10
And that's not working. Okay. So obviously there's a small issue. Oh, that's why. Okay. So there you go. That is not working. I don't understand why. Let me find out why. And it looks as though I'm having a bad technical glitch. That means that the actual video has decided to stop. And this, I do not know why. So we'll go from there. But maybe what I can do is let you hear what Sarah Huckabee Sanders had to say earlier today on Fox News, Fox and Friends.
Today with the first 100
the White House now, I think
we're
the press
continuing
office
to
has
be
settled
aggressive,
in.
bringing about
everything to a
bold
gentleman named
conservative
Ian Sams.
reforms to the state
Now,
of
the
Arkansas.
spokesperson from the
One of my
council's
biggest
office
priorities,
will be
I've
hearing a
made
lot
no
more
secret, is on education reform. We have been working with our partners in the legislature to deliver one of the largest education packages, certainly in Arkansas history, maybe in the country. I'm very excited about the things that we're doing in that space. In the meantime, we've started signing executive orders to take some and make some changes in large part to protect students, to protect kids in our state, and make sure that we are doing a better job for the citizens of Arkansas.
You also talk about cutting red tape as well as improving education. You know, there is some talk that with the COVID money, that a lot of these states do have surplus. Is that the situation with Arkansas?
All right, let me do this. Let me fast forward in this interview and see what we can't do about getting some answers regarding the documents.
It seriously, since they have found them everywhere, because clearly that wasn't the case when he was stashing them in his garage and all over other places. But I think that it's important that reporters other than Peter Doocy are finally starting to hold her feet to the fire and finally starting to ask hard questions and not giving a free pass. I've actually been happy about the way that the White House press corps has finally started to push for real answers from this White House. Now, unfortunately, they haven't gotten any, but they are at least starting to aggressively ask questions, certainly not letting them off the hook. You know, the way that they have been treated over the last couple of years is nothing compared to the intensity and the criticism that we had during the Trump administration. But I'm glad to see that they're at least starting to ask hard questions. I wish we could get some answers, but frankly, she has a terrible story to tell. The difference is when I was in the Trump administration, we had a great story to tell. The economy was booming. Our country was safer. Our border was more secure. Things that were positive were happening. She doesn't have any of those things to talk about, and that makes her job infinitely harder.
But they wanted to talk about Trump's taxes, and they wanted to talk about the Russian hoax. That was the problem you had, and you would sit there and tell people what other was happening. You get the sense better than anyone. Does she not have the answers? Is she not in the meeting? Like Scott McClellan with the Bush administration was just left in the dark, and that caused him to write this horrible book about the Bush administration. Dana Perino and Tony Snow weren't. You were not left in the dark. Do you get the sense that they're not briefing the briefer?
You know, it's hard to know whether she either just doesn't get it because she's not being given the information, or she just doesn't know how to communicate effectively. That's a question I would leave to her. I'm just glad they're starting to put pressure. I think the American people deserve a lot better answers than they're getting out of this White House.
All right. So there you go. That's Sarah Huckabee Sanders earlier today on Fox and Friends. And yeah, she's got a terrible story to tell, echoing some of the things that I just said regarding Karine Jean-Pierre's problems that she's currently dealing with. Now, unfortunately, there is another bad story to tell when it comes to classified documents from high government officials. Vice President Mike Pence has now informed Congress, it happened earlier today, that he discovered documents bearing classified markings in his Carmel, Indiana home, January 16th, from his time as vice president. Following the revelations that classified documents from President Biden's tenure as vice president were found at the Penn Biden Center think tank in Wilmington, Delaware, the vice president's team conducted searches of Pence's Indiana home and political advocacy group, according to Advanced American Freedom. That's their office. According to his team, Pence informed the National Archives on January 18th of a small number of potentially classified documents found in 2 small boxes. Another 2 boxes contained copies of vice presidential papers. The National Archives then informed the FBI per standard procedure. Pence attorney Greg Jacobs wrote on January 18th, Acting Director Kate Dillon McClure of the White House Liaison Division, National Archives and Records Administration, to inform her of the papers containing classified markings. After the documents with classified markings were discovered, they were immediately put into a safe, according to the Pence team. The documents were collected by the FBI at Pence's home in Carmel, Indiana. That happened last Thursday evening, January 19th. Pence was in Washington, D.C. for the annual March for Life when the FBI collected the documents. Pence's team said that although the documents bear classified markings, the Department of Justice or the agency that issues the documents will need to make a final determination on whether the documents are considered classified or not. Now, what I want you to know is that I brought this up earlier. Some of these documents are very likely no longer classified, and that goes for the documents in the possession of President Biden. And so many of these things may have changed. Now, politics demands that particular point of view not be discussed. But I have discussed it. We don't know whether all of these documents are still classified. Some of them likely are. But then again, if you go back all the way to President Biden's Senate career, some of those things are very likely declassified. Now, that doesn't really make any difference because if there is a crime, the actual crime in play here is that he took them in the first place. He took them in the first place. And so if that is indeed the case, then obviously there's some actionable data there. But the mitigating circumstances that they may no longer be classified still doesn't cover the time when they were taken. So these are the circumstances that we deal with here. And all of this started because we had to get Donald Trump. We just had to chase this guy down. He's a rotten scoundrel. And we have to disenfranchise everybody that voted for him twice. And we have to keep him from running for office again. We have to do all of these things. It's absolutely essential that we have to do this, we being the leftist power cabal in Washington, D.C. And I told you that these people have these documents. There is an executive order that was signed by President Obama that I'm going to bring back up and I'm going to share with you so that you have some idea that there is some cover for people in the vice president's office. Well, that is something that's ringing a bell in my head. I've got to clarify it for you. But also what you need to keep in mind is that doesn't cover people in the Senate. That doesn't cover senators. That is very clear cut. There is another story regarding that we're going to get to here in just a couple of moments regarding just exactly how these senatorial documents that President Biden had in his possession came into his possession. Some of that is coming out in the wash. Getting back to the story, Pence's team said that although the documents bear classified markings, they may be unclassified. According to Pence's attorney, Greg Jacobs, and Chief Operating Officer William J. Bosanko of the National Archives and Records Administration, the DOJ departed from its standard procedures that it ran with Biden when it requested direct possession of the documents on January 19th. Other documents that were not identified as potential classified documents were driven from Indiana to the National Archives. No classified documents were found at Pence's Advancing American Freedom office. And once again, this gets back to something else. These guys have these documents. They absolutely do. And what has happened is we kicked over an anthill on this one. We absolutely have. And the ants are crawling everywhere. And people are being damaged by this, probably deservedly. But at the end of the day, we're still, all of these things are from the past. These are all documents that are essentially artifacts of these people's service in Washington, D.C. And therefore, they have been out in the open for good or ill for years. So any actual national security damage has very likely already been done. Once again, does that mitigate what could be possible crime? Maybe not. Maybe not. But once again, that's not going. We're not going to find out any more about that until we have one of those investigations the DHS was doing regarding the implications of the Trump documents. We have not heard any kind of information regarding whether there's an investigation going on like that with DHS for President Biden's documents or now former Vice President Mike Pence's documents. We still haven't heard whether or not there's going to be any kind of investigation under those circumstances. And so, once again, in order to get President Trump out of the way, if you want to say it that way, what we've done now is we've slowly started moving around the spheres of influence of all of these people. I guarantee you, over in Dallas, Texas, on the campus of SMU, Southern Methodist University, everybody is going through the library of President Bush, and I'm sure President Obama is in the same situation, and everybody else, to find out whether or not they have any more classified documents. The question is this. I'm sure they have them. Are we going to hear about it? Are we going to actually hear that there are indeed documents in the possession of, say, for example, President Obama or President Bush or President Clinton? President Clinton probably doesn't have that problem because this has already happened to him. Back with more coming up in a moment. This is the Wells Report. Oh, hi. working on that executive order that I was talking about. I'll have to work on it for the next hour of the Wells Report. We'll get that for you coming up in just a couple of seconds. And so, classified documents are everywhere. People of both parties, it's now a bipartisan issue. We're going to see just exactly how many documents are in the possession of how many people. And I guarantee you, I was just talking about presidents and vice presidents going back through all their papers and so on and so forth. Well, what about Adam Schiff? Does Adam Schiff have any of these documents? Eric Swalwell? Does he have any of these documents? Nancy Pelosi? Are any classified documents out in the wild based on the fact that these people have the authority to at least look at them? I wonder. When you start thinking about how Adam Schiff, did I say Adam Pence? Adam Schiff, when you think about how Adam Schiff was talking about all this classified information, wouldn't it fit that he would actually take some of those things home? I wonder what would that, by the way, in other words, what would the implications be if he did? Well, that certainly covers his lack of a place on the House Intelligence Committee. That would close the book on that. And so what we have now is we have an entire gigantic mess, courtesy of just standard practice, because this is standard practice. And so what we have to do is we have to figure it out. And yes, somebody is bringing up the very straightforward and very important thing that, hey, this is hypocrisy. President Trump gets a SWAT team at his Mar-a-Lago home. Consensual searches for President Biden. We have Mike Pence, once again, doing his own search. Should there indeed be an FBI search of his private residence and any other places like his political action committee offices? Yeah, there should be. All these other people like Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, all these guys are now trying to figure out, okay, do I have any classified documents? And if we have classified documents, there is a way for me to cure the problem by simply finding the classified documents, turning them into the National Archives. The archives calls the FBI, et cetera, et cetera. So far, that's kept all of these other draconian FBI actions at bay. So is that what they do? Or do they try to write it out? Something is ringing very strongly in my head, a bell that says, wait a minute. Adam Schiff has to have some of these documents. George W. Bush has to have some of these documents. President Obama took millions of documents, like 33 million documents. There is no way that some of those documents don't bear classification markings. There's just no way. And I am sure that they are feverishly going through all of that. And if indeed that is what's going on, will we ever find out about it? The answer is probably no. Poker says, what about Omar and Tlaib? American-hating Muslims in Congress? What classified materials do they have? Probably not much. It's possible that they do, but probably not much. And so where does this go? Just how deep does it get? Strangely, does it make the problem smaller if more people are involved? If this is indeed a bipartisan issue, and say, for example, okay, let's say President Obama has classified documents. President Bush has classified documents. Adam Schiff has classified documents. Let's say Mitch McConnell has classified documents. Let's say all these people on a bipartisan level have classified documents. Does that make it so big that the problem becomes institutional instead of individual? Quite likely. Now, does that solve the issue? No. No, it doesn't solve the issue. Not in any way, shape, or form does it solve the issue. The issue is the protection of classified materials. But does it take away the politics of it all? Is that the next step? Well, we will see. We will see. Boy, this mess just gets worser and worser, doesn't it? It just gets worser and worser as time goes by. I'm going to try to find that executive order, and I will do my best to bring that to you. I can find some news articles on it, but I want to give you the exact executive order. I'll do that. Also coming up on the Wells Report, the state of Florida is calling out their university system's African American Studies program. Yeah. Is that a problem? I wonder. Where is that going to go? I mean, African American Studies? What are the problems? Why does the state of Florida disavow this program? We'll get to all of that as we continue here on the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Okay. So here we go, and I will talk to you in a little bit. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That's not the news. That's just my opinion, just as valuable as yours. So let's debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. And yes, we are coming to you a bit earlier today. The reason is I've got some things I got to do, and tomorrow we'll be doing the same thing. This broadcast tomorrow will begin at 10 a.m. live Central Time. 10 a.m. Central Time will be live. We'll do the 3-hour broadcast, and so make sure that you hit the little ding, the little bell, so that you know when we're on the air. I'm also working on trying to get promos done. I did a promo today, the first one. Actually, it was the second one. But this one was fancy because we're upgrading our video presentation. And we're sort of kind of trying to figure out just exactly how to do everything. You see, technology never stops. So this broadcast began, as you know, on 9/11/2001. I've been doing it ever since. And we've been doing it exactly the same way ever since. Bringing you the news because the news just isn't true. And so what we try to do is we try to depropagandize the news every single day. And so that technology is something I have to learn. As a sea lion, I'm pretty adept at balancing a beach ball on my nose. Pretty good at it. But now I'm being asked to balance 2 or 3 beach balls on my nose, and that's a little challenging. So if the show's a little herky-jerky, a little bit, shall we say, bumbly, more bumbly than usual, that's why. Okay, so just bringing you up to date. The next couple of days, I'll hopefully get this all worked out. And when we get this all worked out, we'll make sure that that you get the technical show that you've come to expect from the Wells Report, and also the news analysis, commentary, and debate. And if you're wondering why I'm coughing, it's Mountain Cedar time. It's Mountain Cedar time. In Texas, everybody dies at Mountain Cedar time. It's killing me today. So let's get rolling, shall we? This was very interesting. If you have been following what's been going on regarding schools and the academy, in other words, America's colleges and universities, especially in Florida, you've noticed that Governor Ron DeSantis has been doing what he can do to stop what he calls educational indoctrination. In other words, indoctrination to be set aside for the sake of politics. And that's what he's been working on. So what he does is he's been putting out some stuff to try to change things. And what he's done is essentially concentrated on public schools. Well, now he's taking shots at he and his administration are taking shots at the academy, the university system in Florida. Here's what happened. This courtesy of USA Today. In a letter earlier this month, the Florida Department of Education told the College Board, which creates and oversees advanced placement courses and exams, as well as the SAT and other standardized tests, that its African American Studies course significantly lacks educational value. They went on to say in the letter, in the future, should the College Board be willing to come back to the table with lawful, historically accurate content, the Florida Department of Education will always be willing to reopen the discussion. The letter calls the course inexplicably contrary to Florida law, but did not explain how. So now that is something that is explosive, considering the state of race in the United States. It's explosive. But they're going ahead and taking it on anyway. What was the response? Black religious leaders, including the man who said the closing prayer at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' first inauguration, sent a message to the state over its rejection of the new AP African American Studies course. The Reverend Dr. R.B. Holmes Jr., he's the pastor of Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in Tallahassee, is a former Republican. What he said is this, quote, Black history is not inferior, and Black history does not lack educational value. Well, okay, that is a political statement. It is also buying into the explosiveness of the Florida Department of Education, saying that the advanced placement courses in African American studies they significantly lack educational value. So there was no mention that Black history in Florida was, in the words of the good pastor, inferior. That is not the issue. The issue is, does it comport with actual Florida history? And apparently, according to the Florida Department of Education, it does not. Now, they leave the door open to fix the problems, and so they very likely will. The letter said that the course inexplicably, the roughness I was talking about, is contrary to Florida law. So when everybody started to react, these Black leaders began to cite a litany of frustrations with the DeSantis administration. Reverend Dr. Joseph Wright, pastor of the Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, spoke about DeSantis' decision to get rid of 2 Black-led congressional delegations. Tallahassee Commissioner Curtis Richardson decried the governor's culture war against African Americans. Richardson accused him of voter suppression and blasted school voucher extensions that he said would destroy public education. Well, sorry, public education is destroying public education. The people of the United States have made it absolutely abundantly clear that there is a problem, and people are doing their best to take care of these things or to solve the problems. It does take 2. It does take more than one human being or a group of human beings to be able to come up with something that works for the most number of people. And this is the opening dialogue. But to accuse the other side who says, hey, we find that this lacks educational value, to first say that, oh, okay, what you're saying by that is you're saying that Black history is inferior. No, non-history is inferior to history. Now, what should this mean? This means that everybody should get together and start going through history and making sure that the real history of the United States is being taught. That's not as easy as you might think. And I'll tell you why it's not as easy as you might think. Let's get back to the 1619 Project, shall we? Do you remember that? New York Times came up with this big, lavish feature article about what the United States was in 1619, how the United States was importing slave labor and all of these things. Well, there was no United States of America in 1619. The United States of America didn't exist until 1776. That's 150 years later. Now, was it right to bring slaves into, say, for example, the 13 American colonies? Actually, it was before the 13 American colonies even. Was that correct? No. Slavery is a crime against humanity. Likewise, racism is. That's a different subject. But it's still a crime against humanity. I mean, quite literally a crime against humanity. So what do we have? Well, what we have is we've got a whole bunch of people saying that Black history in America, in the United States, begins in 1619. That is the perfect example of why history is being massaged for the sake of politics. And that's why there is pushback. The default setting of critical race theory, that white people are oppressive and Black people are victimized, is another issue there. That's not what I wanted to do. It's not what I wanted to do. That is not what I wanted to do. Hold on just a minute here. Please stand by. Please stand by. Okay, let's do that. Let's make that one next. All right. Like I said, we we're we're trying to fight with this right now. So please forgive me. All right. There we go. Now we're back. All right. Let's see. I've got to hit that. Then I have to hit that. There. See, I'm running this, the beach balls thing. I'm running all this stuff manually because normally this thing runs automatically. Well, not so much. Moving on. The problem with all this is that there are portions of history being taught in our schools that is flat incorrect. In a lot of ways, it's anti-American. And it's anti-American for political effect. We got to take politics out of schools. I'm a big believer in the curriculum of Dragnet, the Dragnet curriculum. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. The facts are not elusive. The facts are not difficult to find. The facts are in a situation where, okay, people are saying, now we're going to change the facts in order to pursue a political imperative. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong, and indeed terrible, quite terrible. So what's going to happen next? Well, Reverend Richardson, Curtis Richardson, the Tallahassee commissioner, who decried Governor DeSantis's war against African Americans, went on to say that we are here today to tell the governor we're not going to stand by and let these things happen to African Americans in our state. Well, what are they talking about? If you're teaching people incorrect stuff, how does that benefit anybody? Now, are there disagreements about history? That's why everybody has to get together and talk. And so the group aims to create a statewide movement. One, he hoped would, this Mr. Holmes or Dr. Holmes, would spark positive conversations about the value of learning about all people's histories, not at the expense of erasing and eliminating Black studies. Holmes became an independent. This is the former Republican. He became an independent after taking issue with the governor's handling of COVID-19, such as penalizing mask mandates. DeSantis is a potential 2024 presidential candidate. He spent much of his time in office reshaping the state's education system, as I brought up earlier. And so he's fighting against what he calls woke politics, signing bills restricting discussion of race, gender, sexual orientation in the schools. This is according to USA Today. Such efforts have been embraced and parroted by Republican leaders and candidates across the country, and by parent groups such as Moms for Liberty, a group born of frustration over mask and vaccine mandates, that tap concerns about parental rights and indoctrination of kids to gain influence while aspiring armies of moms nationwide to take up the crusade. On yesterday, DeSantis spoke publicly about the state's rejection for the first time. He said the state is blocking the course because it included the study of queer theory and political movements that advocated for abolishing prisons. He said it's a political agenda. That is the wrong side of the line for Florida standards. We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think. This is the Wells Report. Stick around. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report early today. I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow. The show will begin at 10 a.m. Standard Central Time tomorrow. Okay, so it's actually Central Standard Time as we go through the winter. No, it's daylight savings time. Sorry. Spring forward, fall back, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so we'll be doing this tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time. If you want to adjust your schedules, that'd be fine. I promise it will be a little bit smoother because I'm going to fix some things. But still, the news is the news. I didn't want to take the day off because of these errands that I've got to run. But what I do want to do is I want to make sure that you get the news. This was disturbing. This was from Fox News. An Idaho Police Department found white power graffiti at a local high school. What had happened is that the words white power were found spray painted on the side of Caldwell High School last Thursday, 2 days after the high school held a Brown Pride protest, the Idaho Statesman reported. The Tuesday protest was held in support of a student who was told to remove a hooded sweatshirt reading Brown Pride because other people reportedly found it racist. School officials reportedly compared the phrase to a white pride shirt, according to a student who was told to remove that shirt. The Brenda Hernandez ultimately turned the hoodie inside out. The phrase could not be seen while she was on school property. Caldwell High School principal Anita Wilson said at the time the school has a strict dress code compared to other school districts because Caldwell has a gang problem, and therefore Brown Pride was associated with those gangs. So just exactly what was going on? Was there some white pride group on a campus? No. As it turns out, this was not an act of hate, but an act of intimidation between two rival Hispanic criminal street gangs. So in other words, the ability to, say, for example, shall we say, stain the white kids at Caldwell High School was taken up by rival Hispanic criminal street gangs. The quote from the Caldwell Police Department on Facebook says, quote, "At this time, detectives no longer believe the incident to be motivated by hate, but rather an act of intimidation between two rival Hispanic criminal street gangs from Caldwell High. Detectives base this off of evidence, video, and other factors discovered in the course of the investigation." This is what happens when you start teaching CRT in schools. This is what happens when you start teaching that race is the prevailing factor in American public education. This is where you foment strife between groups. It is divisive. And this is what happens. High school kids are smart. They learn. And that they learn is, especially something like this, is something that a lot of people are trying to do something about. In the meantime, it becomes this racial political football. And once again, these kids learn. And what we need to do is we need to realize that what they should be learning is not how to hate each other, or not how to use race as a way to intimidate or to besmirch other members of their classes. Does that make sense? Sure does to me. Why would you not want that? I mean, why would you not want to stop that? I mean, why would you not want to do that? E pluribus unum, of many one. We have a lot of cultures in this nation. We should be celebrating them, not using them to beat each other over the head with. I mean, is that doable? Is it even doable in this nation, especially since there is so much political hay to be made while everybody is beating on each other in the streets, say, of Atlanta, for example? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Thanks for joining us. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, Rumble, and Patreon. The show will be up later on today on those channels, so make sure you join us. It would be awesome. Some economic news that just came in today. Trading of several stocks, including big names such as AT&T, McDonald's, and Verizon, was restored this morning after being halted in early trading hours. On the New York Stock Exchange, there was an unexplained technical issue. The stocks and others, including 3M, Morgan Stanley, Nike, Wells Fargo, were halted right after the markets opened due to the stock exchange, this according to the stock exchange website. The New York Stock Exchange is investigating reported issues with the opening auction. The exchange said in a statement to USA Today. That happened at about 10:21 this morning. All New York NYSE systems are currently operational. Here's what happened. Many of the stocks showed large swings in value, which may have triggered trading halts for volatility, according to CNBC. The halts occurred due to an exchange-related issue. For instance, Walmart, which had a closing price of $142 yesterday, opened at $159 when trading was halted. Similarly, Verizon stock was up 7.2% at the open, an unexpected change. It was also halted. At least 40 S&P 500 index stocks were hit with trading halts, according to Bloomberg. Some stocks dropped as much as 12% before they were halted. They subsequently rebounded less than 1% in either direction as the afternoon is progressing. After closing this morning at 4503, Wells Fargo fell as low as 38.10 before bouncing back, while Morgan Stanley plunged to 84.93 after ending at $97.13 on Monday. Many of the affected stocks resumed trading at about before 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. The NYSE said that about 9:50 the systems were operational. The halt is an unusual occurrence. In the past, it's happened after a software upgrade. CNBC's Bob Pisani, who was reporting on the exchange, said it appears that all the orders to buy and sell at the opening of the exchange this morning that determines the opening price did not make it into the book, whatever that is. NASDAQ did not experience a similar issue. Price changes have happened in the past when there have been computer malfunctions, according to Bloomberg. The most famous incident, according to that very same publication, occurred in August of 2012. Trading firm Knight Capital had a software glitch that riddled the exchanges with erroneous orders and sent shares swinging around the market. Tuesday's incident caught the eyes of market watchers on Twitter. I've never seen anything like it. It's a huge problem, one longtime trader said. I've never seen this happen before. Someone else from Frog Capital said a whole bunch of halts happening on the open of the New York Stock Exchange. I don't remember ever seeing this. So a little bit of a few ripples in the economic waters, but seem to be technical rather than actual market issues. A night of rage, it was called. A night of rage. It was rioting, arson, assault, many other things. And as reported by Fox News, 2 of the 6 subjects charged with domestic terrorism have been charged with domestic terrorism after an anti-police protest turned violent in downtown Atlanta. That happened last Saturday night. 2 of them have been granted bond. Both Ivan Ferguson, 23 years of age, of Nevada, 20-year-old Graham Evett of Decatur, Georgia, were given bond at $355,000 yesterday. Evett was the only suspect arrested who was actually from the state of Georgia. How do all these guys fly around the country? How do all these people show up? The 4 other suspects who were denied bond were Naja Geyer, she's 24, of Nashville, Tennessee, Madeline Fiola, 22 years of age, from Spokane, Washington, Francis Carroll, 22, of Kennebunkport, Maine, and Emily Murphy of Grosse Ile, Michigan. She's 37. Protests erupted Saturday in response to the death of a 26-year-old environmental activist, Manuel Esteban Paez Terán. Tehran was shot and killed by the Georgia State Patrol after authorities said that Tehran shot and wounded a state trooper who was trying to clear protesters from the construction site of a new public safety training center dubbed by activists as Cop City. In the protest following Tehran's death, masked activists dressed in all black threw rocks and lit fireworks in front of a skyscraper that houses the Atlanta Police Department, the Atlanta Police Foundation, shattering large glass windows. They then lit a police cruiser on fire, smashed more windows, and vandalized walls with anti-police graffiti as stunned tourists scattered. Caution tapes wrapped around several buildings, including a Wells Fargo location that suffered several broken windows, according to the photographs at the scene. The misdemeanor charges include pedestrians in a roadway, willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer, riot, and unlawful assembly. The felony counts include second-degree criminal damage, first-degree arson, interference with government property, and domestic terrorism. There are an awful lot of people here that are saying, well, that's about time. That's about time. A lot of the rest of us are saying, I'm sorry, I'm just going to make sure that I got this right. What I'm going to do is I'm doing this live. Okay, so this isn't pre-produced. I'm doing this live. Let's see. Oath Keepers, EERS, all for a night of rage. Oath Keepers call for a night of rage. Let's see. Let's see here. I don't see anything from the Oath Keepers about a night of rage. I know that a few of them have been convicted of sedition or seditious whatever. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So let's go to Proud Boys. Yeah, let's go to Pep Boys and get some tune-up stuff. Jeez, need to tune up my brain. Pep Boys. I love this keyboard. Let's see here. January 6th narrative built on Trump. Proud Boys. Prosecutors look at Proud Boys links from 2018 protests. Let's see. Aspiring Proud Boy who encountered Schumer, sentenced to 55 months. I can't find Proud Boys or Oath Keepers calling for a night of rage. Now, the Oath Keepers, somebody in the Oath Keepers did call for a violent overthrow of the U.S. government. I think he's in jail now, where he should be. What I'm not talking about is a night of rage and then going out and actually doing it. Now, you can think what you want to about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. I think that any kind of acts of violent protest are wrong, which is why when, say, for example, the next time all of us gather at the U.S. Capitol building to redress our grievances, nobody cross a police line. Nobody grab a fire extinguisher and hit police with it. Nobody rush into the Capitol building and put your feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Just surround it. Just surround it. Take your American flags out of your pocket, grab your Constitution that you have in another pocket, and sing the national anthem. That's all you have to do. Violent action is used as a political lever. You can't do it. You just can't do it. And so that is my position, has always been my position, will always be my position. Don't allow somebody to lure you into a gigantic mess that they're going to wrap around your neck and throw into the deepest part of the political ocean. Now, at least some people in Antifa, they've been around for a while. Some people in Antifa are finally having to deal with the law. And indeed, they are being accused of domestic terrorism. I think that's a fine thing because these are domestic terrorists. You go out into Atlanta, you call for a night of rage, you set a police car on fire or a building on fire or what have you. That's terrorism. I'm just saying, that's what it is. That is not what we should do. That is a mistake. It is an error. And it also, by the way, feeds this totalitarian political agenda where the people of the United States are somehow the enemy. That is most assuredly not the case. But it certainly can be if we allow this to continue happening. It's just not the right thing to do. So let's not do it, shall we? Good. Glad we agree. Glad we agree. Antifa is a mess. And what happened is that they are continuing to act as they did simply because they can. This is the first time I've ever seen them held accountable almost in real time. And it's high time it's long overdue. Long overdue. And this is just one of those things where you allowed these people to run in the streets during the summer of 2020 because you wanted to be able to have the nightly news talking about chaos and unrest in the United States and try to blame it all on President Trump. Arguably, it worked. I talked about it here. Every time the left is in trouble politically, they send out thugs. In 1968, they sent out militant, radical university students. Now what we have Black Lives Matter. We have Antifa. We have all these people running in the streets. The way to stop them is to take them off the streets for an extended length of time. Give them an opportunity to think things over. In jail. And at least Fox News is covering it. Let me see if USA Today covered much of this. Let's go to USA Today. Let's see. Trading resumes. Taylor Swift. Modern vascular company prioritized profits. Where's the real Alex? Who is the real Alex Murdaugh? Let's see. 18 million under winter storm warning. 76-year-old woman fatally shoots dying husband at a Florida hospital. That was tragic. Talk about who got snubbed for Oscar nominations. Let's see what else. Former vice president, classified documents. The tax season is here. When to file. Greedy NFL should leave AFC and NFC championship games alone. I agree. Let's see what else. The Half Moon Bay tragedy. God, that was awful. Just terrible. Stunning videos show a hero wrestling a gun from the Monterey Park killer. You ought to watch that. That's on USA Today. Let's see. Considering a personal loan. Let's go down to other top stories. And this is off the front page now. So we have Oscars again. Heroes in the ballrooms of Monterey Park. A-Rod was one of baseball's greatest of all time. Georgia DA argues against release of report in Trump grand jury in Georgia. Thoughtful and sentimental Valentine's Day gift ideas. Animal tranquilizer, new threat to an opioid epidemic. M&M's puts candy mascots on indefinite pause. Let's see. Patriots to hire familiar face as offensive coordinator. Monterey Park shooting timeline minute by minute. Apple releases iOS 16.3 with new security features. Great. I get to update my phone again. Let's see. Florida Advanced Placement African American Studies course has been attacked by the state of Florida Department of Education. And Ginny in Georgia, when someone you love does something ... Strangely, the arrest of Antifa domestic terrorists not on the front page of USA Today. Is that not newsworthy? Seriously now, is that not newsworthy? Is it not newsworthy that we actually get to, say, for example, hear about a national news story? Yes or no? I think it is. Why isn't it being reported? I know. Let's try CNN. CNN.com. Let's try CNN. Classified documents found at Pence home, upper left-hand corner. Decisions imminent on charges in Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. Let's see. Half Moon Bay, fact check experts, blah, 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 blah. Still working. Yeah. And this is CNN now. CNN. Let's see. I'm not going to talk to those people. Hello? Goodbye. Let's see. CNN. Let's see. Still don't see Antifa. Still don't see Antifa. More top stories. This is the second page. Let's see what else. There is nothing on the front page of CNN or USA Today regarding Antifa activists being charged with domestic terrorism. You know what? You'd think that the domestic terrorism was kind of important, especially people being charged with it. What am I missing? 817-379-2172. What am I missing? Anything? Somehow I don't think so. I don't think I'm missing a thing. Now, Fox News last night brought up something that was very interesting. After the, quote, summer of love in 2022, I guess it's a summer of love if you like looting Target and burning down Wendy's and setting fire to federal buildings, blinding police officers, etc. Anyway, the summer of love, after all of that, we didn't hear anything about. We didn't hear anything about Antifa. After that was all over, they were gone until last Saturday night in Atlanta. Now, why do you suppose that is? 817-999-4499, 817-999-4499. That's the wrong number. 817-379-2172. My phone was ringing. Shoot, I answered it. Hi, can I help you? Okay, they hung up. All right, so anyway, golly, I love it when a whole bunch of things come together. I've got to learn how to balance 4 beach balls on my nose. Anyway, that being said, so what we have here is we have Antifa disappearing. They just vanish. And then all of a sudden they come back. Why now? Why is that? Do you have any idea? Is there some dark political agenda afoot? Like arguably there was during the summer of love? I don't know. All I know is these people were being flown in from all over the country. They are the people being arrested. Were they the ringleaders of the riot? Likely. Why are people flying from all over the country to go have a riot in Atlanta? Where are they getting their money? Who's buying the plane tickets? How does all this work? How come it's not in the news in 2 of the major news websites in the United States? This is domestic terror. I mean, we heard incremental news stories about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. We heard incremental things. You know, they are locked in solitary confinement. They are under arrest. They're going through their trials after years, et cetera, et cetera. But then what happened with all that coverage of these supposed domestic terrorists when it comes to Antifa? I mean, do you honestly believe the political machine that I often talk about includes Antifa? Is that where we are? You know, that might be the case. Are they part of the political machine? I said that when the left gets in trouble, they send out thugs. So why are they sending out thugs now? Who's paying the bills? We got 6 ringleaders, 2 of which were released on bail. 4 are domestic terrorists. Or at least charged with domestic terrorism. My bad. We don't try people in the media here. These are all answers we have to have. These are answers we have to have, we should have. And why is it that our mainstream media, and oh, by the way, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, why are they not in touch with any of this? You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Early today because I got some things to do. This show starts at 10 tomorrow. More in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Now I'm not. This is the Wells Report on earlier today. Tomorrow will be a lot smoother and a lot easier to understand and so on and so forth. I won't be as distracted because I'm running all this stuff in manual. Normally I have computers that do this for me. People usually in this job have people that take care of these things. Well, I have computers. And tomorrow this will be a lot smoother. I've got some things that I'm going to do this afternoon, and so I'm doing the show a little bit earlier. We'll be doing the show earlier again tomorrow on wherever, whatever platform, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, wherever you see this show. So we have this one thing that we started the show with. We were talking about the Monterey Park shootings and the Half Moon Bay shooting, the last couple of shootings in California. Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom said the Second Amendment is becoming a suicide pact following the massacre that took place in his state over the weekend. This is a guy who's taking shots at the Bill of Rights. Okay, we already know about the left's willingness to say, for example, oh, I don't know, quell free speech, manipulate the press, attack religion, the weaponry we use to defend ourselves. The Fourth Amendment's long gone. That's not necessarily leftist. That was a project that was started with the Patriot Act. The Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. People just flat will try the story in the media. Sixth, due process, on and on and on. Famous quote about due process. Due process, there's more than just due process. There's due process, and then there's due process. Oh. That was, by the way, Eric Holder, a former attorney general. I actually said, so there's due process, and then there's due process? Is that what we're talking about here, Mr. Attorney General? Following the mass shooting in Monterey Park that left 11 dead, Governor Newsom left a fiery reaction during an interview on CBS News. Nothing about this is surprising. Everything about it is infuriating. Well, when you mandate that your citizenry be completely defenseless, someone will take advantage of it. And that is just the case. O'Donnell noted, Nora O'Donnell of CBS News said California has the strictest gun laws in the country. Yet Newsom didn't take aim at his state's constitution, but instead the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment is becoming a suicide pact. Actually, not. That is not the case. Actually, trying to stop the Second Amendment is a suicide pact. Let me give you this quick thing before I go. I want to make this quick. Okay? What I'm trying to tell you is this. The Second Amendment of the Constitution is an unalienable right, not inalienable. That's not even a word. Unalienable. Well, what does that mean? You cannot put a lien against it. In other words, you cannot legislate to rid yourself or infringe on any particular right in the Bill of Rights. You cannot legislate yourself around free speech. You can't legislate around whether or not people can arm themselves. This is all straightforward. Now, the thing about it is this. There are people who feel otherwise. Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California. He says the Second Amendment's becoming a suicide pact. Well, if you feel that way, Governor, then by all means, do what other people have thought about doing. Call an Article 25 Convention of the States and do away with it. You could amend the Constitution. You simply can. You can amend the Constitution. Put together an amendment, Governor Newsom, that does away with the Second Amendment. Get it through both houses of Congress. Get it through 2/3 of the states or 3/4 of the states, and you're there. But that's not going to happen, is it? No, it's not going to happen. And so this constant chip away of what is a basic God-given right is something that is totally screwing up the nation. And we had better stop it. Look, there are ways to change the country. They're in the Constitution. But instead of actually using the Constitution to further your political aims, what you're trying to do is you're trying to break the Constitution. In other words, this is anti-American. We just threw a whole bunch of people in jail for seditious conspiracy. Those are words or actions against the government of the United States. Well, what is this? If you're trying to suspend the civil rights of the people in your neighborhood and in your particular state, what is that if not seditious conspiracy? Just food for thought. Early tomorrow, I'll see you at 10 a.m. tomorrow for another edition of the Wells Report. Take good care. Okay, my friends, sorry that was a rough one. God bless you. Thank you very much for being with us. And like I said, we'll be on early tomorrow between 10 and 1 p.m., okay? And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Take good care.